I'm going to teach you how fast armies move and how to freaking counter that nonsense. So, when people talk about fast armies in Warhammer 40,000, they usually are talking about speed, how far they move, how long their charges are, how quickly they can table you. But that's actually not why fast armies are winning games. You see, fast armies win when your opponent suddenly comes to the realization that they don't have any safe places to go on the board. And the problem is that it's very hard to teach because nothing dramatic happens when it works. So in this video, I'm not going to start with charges or damage. I'm actually going to start with a normal board. I'm going to show you normal staging points, normal safe decisions, and then I'm going to add one thing: threat. So if you're struggling with how to play a fast army or how to play against a fast army, this video is freaking for you. You're going to see just how showing where a fast army could go removes options, which will collapse staging and it will force mistakes without rolling a single die. So if fast armies have ever felt unfair to you, or if you play one and you can't figure out why it sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, well, this is the piece that's usually missing. This is a follow-up to my previous video where I went through how every army has to move up the board. And guess what? That video is still 100% valid. I'm going to show you why the psychology effect of a fast army can destroy what an opponent knows they have to accomplish. So let's just get right freaking into it. I'm going to show you the tabletop here. All right. So if you guys are familiar with this, you need to go rewatch the previous video because we walked through how every army basically has to move up the board in the exact same manner. Check that out. It was an awesome video, and a lot of people learned a ton about Warhammer in it. So this is not going to review that. This is going to expand upon that. So first off, we have the exact same layout that I did with the orcs in the first video, and the Iron Hands and the whatever, and I think it was like triple ACDC. Everyone moved exactly the same. So in Search and Destroy, every army is going to have to start here. Every army is going to have to start here. Every army is going to have to claim their natural, and they're going to have to figure out how they're going to deny your opponent's natural. If these terms don't make sense to you, make sure you go back and watch that video. Now remember, with the orcs in particular, we don't necessarily care that we're exposed here because of what it forces your opponent to expose to kill the battle wagon. Same thing here. We don't necessarily care that we're exposed here because of what it forces our opponents to expose. If you really don't want your opponent to be able to move up here and shoot you, well, that's what infiltrators are for. So boom. Bully for them, now they can't shoot you. Done. It's that simple. All right. But let's get right into the purpose of the video. So when we look at this board, we automatically know what's about to happen. This battle wagon, if they go first or second, it really doesn't matter. They're going here. They're going to get troops out to stage in here. It's just what's going to happen because this is a staging point. This is a staging point. This battle wagon is going to move up here, and Gaz and the boys are going to go stand at 1.1 inch away from this ruin, making sure out of the line of sight so it's not easy to shoot them. I'm going to have Gretchen get out of this truck. They're going to go claim the center, blah, 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 blah. Probably going to have commandos somewhere around here to touch this objective to deny it to my opponent as well. That's what the orcs are going to do. And this is exactly what every army is going to do. Now, I'm going to add something in to this equation. I'm going to add a fast army that's going to stop the orcs from being able to do this. And I'm going to show you why they stop the orcs from being able to do this. So let me just load in that map. This will take 2 seconds. Or maybe 7 seconds. Pardon me. Okay, so now we added a bunch of Blood Angels. We've got some Scouts. We've got Dante and some Sanguinary Guard. We got Mephiston in the center. We got some Ball Predators ready to overwatch. We got some Lancers that are ready to start shooting into our battle wagons. We've got a lot of threat on this board, which really messes the orcs up. As a matter of fact, if the orcs deploy like this and they go second, they've already lost the game, which is devastating for the orc player. Honestly, at this point, the orc player, because of how the speed of the Blood Angels, the orc player has already lost if they go second. How brutal is that? Well, it's very brutal. So, and let me explain why they've already lost. Because if the Blood Angel player goes first, all they're going to do is they're going to put an Oath of Moment on Gaz's unit. They're going to advance and charge Dante. Dante is practically guaranteed to make this charge because he's going to go a minimum of 14 inches with his advance because he adds +1 to the advance roll. So minimum is going to be 14 inches. And then they're going to be charging at +1 to charge. So it'll be a 3-inch charge in the worst possible case scenario. And when Dante's unit attaches to Gazgul Thraka, well, they die. It's just the way it is. Rerolling hit rolls, winning everything on 2s or 3s if you get -1 to be wounded. But if they fail the battle shock, which they very well might, they can't even -1 to wound, which is a big problem for them. So this is a huge, huge issue for the orcs. It means the orcs can't play. Now, the reality is that the Blood Angel player doesn't even need to do this move. They really don't need to do this move. All they need to do is to be able to do this move. As long as Dante's unit is able to get here turn 1, Mr. Gaz's unit can't deploy here, because that is an auto loss if the orcs lose their big Death Star on turn 1. So what you can see here is you can see the ability of the fast melee army not changing the rules of staging, because Gaz actually does still need to go here. There's nowhere else that he can. But their threat forces the orc player to do something stupid. And what that stupid thing is they're going to deploy Gaz down here, which removes all form of pressure from the orcs from the board. Now, the second the Blood Angel player actually does commit Dante, something very, very fascinating is going to happen on the board. Now the orc player doesn't have to worry about how fast Dante is anymore, simply because Dante has already been committed. So in a weird way, the Blood Angel player is actually going to lose a lot of their threats, and they're going to lose a lot of their board control by committing their units. And this is why in some of my other videos, what you may have seen is I talk about threat projection and not using your ability. When I play my orcs, one of my favorite things to do is I like to really aggressively stage my battle wagons, really aggressively stage my trucks, all these things. And my opponent's expecting a wah. So what they do is they just pull backwards slightly to make sure I can't connect with them. And then what I do is I don't wah. And the reason why I don't wah is because I don't use that once per game advance to charge hard hitting. Because now my opponent has pulled back, which means that they are out of position. Similarly, in this exact same scenario right here, if the orc player is well aware of how hard Dante can hit and how fast he can go, and he pulls Gaz all the way backwards, now he's out of position, which means the Blood Angel player's already won. So if he deploys here, the Blood Angel player wins if they go first. If he deploys back here, the Blood Angel player wins if they go first or second, because they're going to be able to fully claim the board control. So how do you counter something like this? Well, it's really quite simple, actually. If it is a fast melee pressure army, you need to make sure that this squad can't charge into Gaz, which means Gaz is still going to deploy here, but he's going to deploy like, oh, I don't know, an inch backwards. And instead of deploying like that, well, I'm just going to take one of these squads of Gretchen, and I'm going to deploy these Gretchen in front of Gaz. Basically like this. This whole squad is just going to scoot backwards ever so slightly, just so I can encapsulate them in Gretchen. Now, when Dante charges in, they're going to have to base all these Gretchen, and they're going to have to kill the Gretchen and not the Gaz unit. So now Gaz is effectively going to be deployed in the same way, and pardon me, I'm not going to go through all the agony right now of making this 100% perfect. If you don't understand the concept of what I'm doing right here, then you should just learn to understand the concept of what I'm doing right here. Just create your little screen. And now, if Dante did want to send that turn 1 projection, he can't. But what's really, really interesting is now we've actually flipped the concept of how crazy powerful the turn 1, how fast the movement really screws the orc players up, and we've kind of flipped it onto the Blood Angel player. Because now the Blood Angel player is actually concerned about what happens if Gaz was turn 1. Because Gaz in Warhorde can actually go 16 inches practically, well, on average, and then be at +2 to charge, assuming you use the Eerie Go strat, which you will, if you choose to watch turn 1. And he can kill this entire brick, and he can kill this ball predator, and he can tie all this stuff up. And that would be a really, really, almost as big a death blow to the Blood Angels as it would for the orcs. Which would require the Blood Angels to actually counter the orcs, which they could simply by putting scouts down. So this is the concept of screening, right? So now if Gaz's unit wants to go out, Gaz would have to actually charge into the scouts, which would really screw the target prioritization up. So this is a really, really interesting concept that we get into, especially when we're talking about our fast armies. This is called screening. So right here, Gaz's unit initially has to screen from Dante coming in. Otherwise, the orcs automatically lose if the Blood Angel player goes first. Now, if Gaz's unit is smart and screens Dante, then the Blood Angel player is screwed if the orcs go first. Well, they already were kind of screwed if the orcs go first. But now the Blood Angel player gets to counter by putting down their screen. So how do you defeat an army that moves incredibly fast that you're not prepared for? Well, the answer is you need to already be there prepared to interrupt them. If you can't get there faster than your opponent, just be there at the start. And this is why units like infiltration, like infiltrators, whether it's a commando for the orcs or it's the scouts for the space marines, are so dang powerful because your opponent cannot get there faster than a unit that's already there. If the Blood Angel player is trying to get to this objective, is trying to get over here, but I already have my unit of commandos holding the objective, well, I'm already there. You can't get there before me. I don't care how fast you are. I'm already there. So if I need to create a shield for this turn 1 pressure, it's already there. If I am dreadfully terrified of how hard-hitting, say, a Gladiator Reaper is, a super anti-infantry weapon that's going to be getting Oath of Moment, full rerolls to hit into Gaz's unit, with sustained hits too, with devastating wounds that are twin-linked and strength 6, and he can even figure out ways, there's actually ways to ignore cover and give it +1 AP and do all these things, and just devastate this unit turn 1. If I'm terrified of this unit's ability to do this, well, there's nothing I can do speed-wise to stop him, but I can certainly do something deployment-wise to stop him. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to deploy commandos right here. Because this thing has to stop outside of an inch of the commandos. And when it stops outside of an inch of the commandos, that's going to give me a line. Now, all I know is that I'm going to have to... let me just make sure I've got this right real fast. There we are. Now, I know where this Lancer is actually going to have to end up. Which means I can deploy accordingly. So I know if the Lancer can get here, that's the line it's going to be a hold. So that means that these orc boys are actually going to have to end up deploying here so that the Lancer can't shoot me turn 1, if that's what I was afraid of. So when you're concerned about the speed of your opponent, all you got to do is restrict your opponent from moving. And that, my friend, is called screening. The Blood Angel player has to do the exact same thing to the orcs. And the orc player has to do the exact same thing to the Blood Angels. If you're an Imperial Guard player and you're terrified about the World Eaters who just deploy on the line and are going to scout forward 6 inches and then move 10 inches and then advance and charge and disembark and do whatever, well, all you got to do is you got to screen them. But if, let's just rewind time here just a moment. Let's ignore all this stuff for just a moment. If Gaz ends up being afraid of the turn 1 speed and pressure that Dante can provide here, and doesn't deploy and move where he needs to move, and let's say he just deploys either all the way back here, or let's say he does it even worse, he just starts in strategic reserve, saying, okay, cool, I'm not going to give you the opportunity to kill me turn 1. Well, now the orc player is in even more trouble, because the Blood Angel player has the ability to screen strategic reserves, and now they get to grab dominant board position. And that makes things even worse. So, in this scenario, Grats and Gits, my happy crumpers, what we've learned is that even though we have incredibly fast-moving armies, we still have the same avenues of approach. Our units actually still have to move here. Our units still have to deploy here. We just have to add a little bit of a modifier where we add a screening element so we decrease the attractiveness of those turn 1 alpha strikes. It's exactly the same for shooting. Let's say that we are worried about our opponent coming up here and shooting. Well, now we got to put up our screen to stop our opponent from moving into the positions that they want to move. And then we just deploy around that. So what you realize is that your deployment for fulfilling movement is your greatest edge and your greatest weapon when you play Warhammer 40,000. Guys, if you love this video, let me know in the comments down below. Share, like, subscribe, share it with your friends and stuff. And I'm going to continue bringing you as much Warhammer 40,000 gold as I can to make sure that you and everyone else gets as good at this game as possible. I love this game. It creates critical thought like no other hobby in the world. And with that, I'm out. Crump on. Bye-bye.